So I'm still sleeping. Okay. She got me up.
You don't
like,
have your firearm on.
Yeah, of course.
Can I say, Dawson? Just for my safety.
But I'm on my property. I'm not gonna do anything.
I know, but you.
I understand that, but I'm on my property.
I understand it. But you call me to come help you.
That's fine. Well, we're not gonna sit and talk to you. You got your gun right here. No.
Come. I ask you what's going on. First thing I know, coming to the call without ever meeting you, you have a gun. I ask you, do you have a gun? You show it to me. For my safety, I don't know you from a can of paint. I don't know you from yesterday or last year. For my safety, I'm asking you, can I disarm you and we can continue this conversation for the investigation? But if you don't want to disarm yourself, then my safety is in jeopardy. Not saying that you're going to do something, but I feel safe talking to you while you don't have a loaded firearm on your hip. So at that point, if you no longer want
the citizens in court, for instance, you will be handcuffed. You will be hogtied. You're going to have a harder fight. But when it comes to the government government must be hogtied. That's the whole point of the Constitution. But now, because of qualified immunity or absolute immunity and supreme immunity and all these immunities that the government enjoys, now we're the ones who have to fight with one hand tied behind our backs, and we have to share proof. We have the burden of proof on that we have to show. And so the government just keeps getting bigger and keeps doing more of whatever they want because they have their immunities.
What's going on, guys? And today's video comes from Miami-Circus. He reached out to me personally to share with me his story. And his story's this. He's been having prowlers and trespassers come on his property, and he's been able to witness that through his security cameras. So he called the Miami-Dade police to come help him out. But the moment the cop got there, all of his investigation went out the window. The only thing he was concerned with was disarming Miami-Circus on his own property. No warrant, no consent. Miami-Circus is on his yard in his home. And the cop just reaches across the fence and tries to disarm him. At that point, the perpetrator that had been encroaching on Miami-Circus's land is long gone. Because when it comes to solving crime and serving citizens, the cop couldn't do anything. But when it came to being super scared for his safety and trying to strip a citizen of their Second Amendment right, well, that was the sole concern. Shortly after this video, Miami-Circus filed a big old lawsuit. And stay tuned to the end of the video because he joined us to have a discussion and give us a behind-the-scenes update for what's going on. Check him out. His original video and channel link will be in the description of this one. And I feel bad for these cops because Miami-Circus is running for mayor. Seems like he's going to be creating change from the inside.
24 on arrival, 1016 on your stretch.
No, 24 4 arrival.
24 4 arrival, 1016 on your stretch. 24 1 Crystal. Or 2303 still routine and 1016 22.
Over here from time to time. Okay. But I don't know what he did scared the out of my wife.
Okay.
So I'm still sleeping. Okay. She got me
you
up.
You don't
like,
have your firearm on.
Yeah, of course.
Can I say, Dawson? Just for my safety.
But I'm on my property. I'm not gonna do anything.
I know, but you.
I understand that, but I'm on my property.
I understand it. But you call me to come help you.
And just to make sure.
Okay, I understand that.
I can take care of the situation.
Well, you can take care of you when the call.
No, I'm on my property.
Right.
So if you could, we could just go our way. But for my safety, I'd rather.
No, thank you. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Not a problem.
So let me get this right. For a police officer to do his job and give you any kind of service, you first have to give up your rights. Someone robs your house. They won't help you unless you give up your First Amendment right. Someone trespasses on your land and steals your stuff. You have to give up your Second Amendment right. I didn't realize that policing was quid pro quo, that in order to get services that you pay for as taxpayers, you need to give up your inalienable rights. And here's the problem. Cops are stupid, and at some point in their dumb little mind, they tried to turn the word inalienable to negotiable. And I love Miami-Circus because he was not willing to negotiate what to him is inalienable. And remember, there's some sort of criminal in the general vicinity close by. This cop's willing to let all of it slide for his safety, and he will go on a tangent and cry at length about how important his safety is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 5'5".
6221. 6221, just go. 09.
I'll write him one. I'll write him one. I got it.
Stand by. CRU 242. I'm clear to cover the OC.
Sam, just let it go, bro.
Yes, sir. Verifying that's 15 with on 2506.
But we trying to talk to him. I'm like, hey, you got your firearm?
Yes, on 15 around 110. 18 and unit share.
He's like, no, I'm on my property. Start going back and forth. Okay, you don't need us, fine. Well, we're not gonna sit and talk to you. You got your gun right here, no.
For his home. But the guy ended up being nice. He was just okay. Just had
it didn't come out nice.
Yeah, it didn't come out. That's all.
It didn't come out nice. Because if it was nice, if it was nice, we wouldn't have been called out.
No, I understand.
So apparently, based on the call and the remarks, you were pointing the gun at him. You was making threats towards him.
No, I want to hear that call too.
Okay, you can contact our communications department about that, and that could go through. Maybe your wife said it. Maybe she heard you. I don't know where she was. But the way that the call came out was there was a subject somewhere here on the premises, and you were pointing a gun at him, making threats. So when we come, so let me just give you my perspective. When we come, I ask you what's going on. First thing I know coming to the call without ever meeting you, you have a gun. I ask you, do you have a gun? You show it to me. For my safety, I don't know you from a can of paint. I don't know you from yesterday or last year. For my safety, I'm asking you, can I disarm you and we can continue this conversation for the investigation? But if you don't want to disarm yourself, then my safety is in jeopardy. Not saying that you're going to do something, but I feel safe talking to you while you don't have a loaded firearm on your hip.
Trust me, officer, I think I speak for all the citizens, including Miami Circus, when I say we'd feel more comfortable if you didn't have a loaded firearm on your hip. So how about this? Let's even the playing fields. I know you like it when only you're safe and the citizens are in danger. Let's make everybody safe. Next time you go to a call, leave your firearm in the car and then go from there for citizen safety. So we, the citizens that don't know you from a can of paint, will just feel so much more safe because you're not talking to us with a loaded gun. You wouldn't do that, would you? No, because you're a coward. I mean, this guy is safety, 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 safety. This is the most coward cop I've ever seen in my life.
So at that point, if you no longer want to cooperate with what I'm asking you, then we have nothing else to talk about, especially if you call me. But again, we have everything on body camera. You can call the communications department and you can get the whole recording of everything. Okay?
No problem. Also, how do we know that you are the husband?
Correct.
That you're not the person that we're looking for with the firearm.
Correct.
We're always going to put our life and our safety first, so yeah, understand that too.
On my private property, I'm always packing. I'm always carrying.
No, that's fine. And just mind you, we're on the outside of the residence. If you're inside the house, fine. But I still, if inside the house, I would have asked you, can you put the gun away? Can you put it to the side? I'll step outside until you put the gun away. But there's just safety precautions and measures that we want to take for our safety, as well as yours. Because we don't want an accident to happen where we think you trying to reach for it. You know, things happen. You know what I mean?
We don't want accidents to happen.
So we just want to, avoid.
I want to know how you guys are trained.
No, I mean that's one of the ways we're trained. Yeah, we
if you step on somebody's private property,
correct.
Can you disarm someone? Are you trained to disarm someone?
We're not. If we're inside your property, this is your house. When we step foot in your house, this is your house. You have all rights.
And then the house is different from the property, right?
On the outside of the house, yes, correct. Because on the outside, we're inside the gate, but it's still an open area. So we have to make sure that our safety is priority, and then make sure that your safety as well.
What's going on, guys? That video is absolutely nuts, and we can sit here and armchair quarterback it and try and draw our own conclusions from it, because certainly that's what the police did that day. But I think it'd be just easier if I brought up the man himself, Miami Circus. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
So I'm watching this video, and the police show up, and then dude goes to reach for your firearm. And even though it was kind of far away, you could see the look on your face. You were like, bro, what? So tell us how they got called there to begin with.
So we do have an issue. We have an issue with trespassers. And for the most part, they're harmless. I often go out there, ask them to leave. I always have my firearm on me. I open carry. It's my property. We have about an acre of land. And being down here in Florida, but, you know, there's a caveat to that. It's Miami, Florida. Florida's a gun-happy state, a gun-friendly state, I should say. And so I'm always out there with my firearm. My wife did get scared because I wasn't even awake yet at that time, but she was out with the cats. We have 50 cats, by the way, on the property. And they're feral. We get them all spayed and neutered. They're all spayed and neutered, and we take care of them. And they tend to stay here. And so we built a catio for them, kind of like a treehouse for them.
I like that, a catio.
Yeah. So so she ran inside the house and got me and woke me up and said, okay, I'm going to go out there. I'll have my firearm. Just call the police just in case something does go down. Normally, I just take care of the situation. But in this case, it seemed a little bit more urgent. I was like, go ahead and call the police. Let them know that everything's calm. Give them a description of me, but let them and description of the other guy, and just let them know that I'm going to ask them to leave. So she did that. And when they came out, he seemed pretty cool. He asked me if I still had the firearm on me. I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, duh. You know, you're in Florida. It's what we do. So, and then that's when he tried to take it from me. I was like, whoa, hey, hold on. And I kept my arm up. I'm not making any sudden movements because, you know, there's still a reputation. And he even mentioned that in the video. And I was like, but I'm on my property. See, on this property, I'm the sheriff. Here, I say what goes. That's the whole. It's kind of one of the biggest benefits of owning your own property is you get to be the sheriff. You get to be the king and queen of your property. He didn't like that very much, but
no, he didn't like it at all. And what's interesting to me, and I think everyone else watching at home, is going to be how the investigation of any crime stopped, right? And he mentioned it, I think I counted 8 times in less than 30 seconds. He's like, I don't know you from a can of paint, but for my safety, for officer safety, for my safety. And then he would sprinkle in a for your safety, but for my safety.
Right.
The fact that, and this is not the first time you've had trespassers, so the fact that people are encroaching on your land, they could possibly be scoping out your premises to try and steal things. You know, you have some fun toys. That all stops the moment this cop sees that you're armed. But so is he, right? And you bring up a great point. You're like, I don't like meeting people I don't know that have loaded handguns. And your point is, well, you know, I feel the same way, but I'm still out here willing to talk to you. So, I mean, how does that make you feel to know that the cops show up to investigate a crime and any crime that was in progress stopped so that the cop could try and disarm you on your property?
Well, for that particular police officer, now, and I will preface this with this, I've had a lot of cops on here. I open carry with them on my property. They have no issues with it. With that particular police officer, it did make me feel like it's us versus them. You know, there's a disconnect. It's like, what's the difference between you and me? Now, I understand you're enforcing the laws. That's great. And I appreciate that. I really do. But this is still America. And Miami does tend to be a little bit different in the culture down here. We are a big melting pot. English is not the primary language down here. It is Spanish, and we have a big Haitian community. But at the end of the day, Miami is different compared to the rest of the world. But we're still in the United States. But he's definitely, and even the female officer, she is of the mentality of absolutely not. Guns should be forbidden for the American people. And it goes to show me that there is a group of there's a mentality out there, and it may not be the majority, but it's still scary, where the guns must be taken away from American citizens. And I mean, of course, we see this in politics, but the video kind of shows you it play out in real life. He was appalled that I would even have my gun on me. You know,
well, he had no idea of the law anyways. And like you mentioned, the secondary officer, the female officer, she made a comment, and her exact quote was, I think she was talking to the other officer. She said, he thinks we're going to help him while he has a gun. I don't understand what the issue is, but besides the fact that this whole investigation was halted, he straight up told you that he was going to render zero service unless you surrendered your firearm. So you didn't have the right to be served or protected unless you surrendered your Second Amendment on your property. I mean, it's not like we're talking about some new area of law. So much case law and precedence has been set that you are the king of your castle. In fact, in 2019, I don't know if you remember the story, police officers didn't announce themselves. They were beyond the curtilage, and they were trekking the side of this guy's window. They came up to the door. They were going to serve a warrant. They didn't announce himself. He took a shotgun. He blew a hole through the wall, and he blew one of them away. And the guy was found not guilty, and he sued and won. This is our property. And we are in America, whether it's Miami, whether it's Boston, and you stood your ground, which leads us to the big update. Enough is enough. You paid for the body cam, and now what's your next step in court?
So what's going on with my federal lawsuit is constitutional violations. Now, in this particular case, with the police officer, that's not mentioned in this lawsuit. So what's going on is Miami-Dade County in general, which is why I'm actually running for mayor. So Miami-Dade County in general is taking the Constitution, they're wiping their asses with it, frankly. They have their code enforcement that they're training to come onto property and search without a warrant, to issue citations. Then you're a journalist. I'm a journalist. I actually studied journalism in college. I wrote for the Miami Herald for a short time. Journalism is tough. You want to make a career out of it. I mean, you're making a big sacrifice financially. People think that you're uber rich. I know the difference because I have my channel, and it's not like we make a ton of money off of this, but we do a lot of work to disseminate this information, and it's of great public interest. But if you don't have a press pass down here, you do not get the same privileges as the big conglomerates. And there's some discrimination going on, of course, and the courts have ruled even at the highest levels. There is no difference between a career journalist and a regular citizen. It's the same privilege. So we're suing on that. Miami-Dade County is doing aerial surveillance, and there's a drone act here in Florida, and they don't care about it. And they'll even mention it. That doesn't apply to us. Yes, it does. They think the law does not apply to them, and this is what they're doing. They're going to price people out. I'm already about $150,000 into attorneys, and I'm very privileged, and I recognize that, to be able to do this. But it's still a big risk. There's no guarantees that I'm going to win in court. We do believe we have the law on our side. My attorney is a very good attorney. He's a very expensive attorney, but he grilled me on this, and he said, you got to remember, the rule of thumb is stay out of court when you can stay out of court, because you never really know what's going to happen. Now, we can have the law on our side, but different courts will vary until you get to the Supreme Court. Of course, they're going to make a decision. But we've already seen that the Supreme Court has made some bad decisions. I think they've made some good ones, but you see decisions being overturned throughout the generations because there were bad calls. And we're almost setting precedent on some of these, not fully. But on some of these, we're dabbling into an area of Constitution that hasn't been given a direct opinion, because we weren't able to reference case law on some of these violations, these constitutional violations. But the whole point still stands that the Constitution must be protected at all costs. Our battleground today is the courts. The difference is, though, they have unlimited resources. The government, your local townships, your cities, your counties, and even your state, but obviously, they have basically unlimited resources. Where, well, I'm just a lower middle class man, and I have my business, and the business does okay for me to live the way that I want to live. But that doesn't mean that I can spend $150,000 on an attorney with no guarantee.
Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? So, folks at home, you might want to you're misled into the belief that justice is equitable, and there is no equity in justice, because we say that the burden is, in a federal civil rights lawsuit, something like that, the burden is on the plaintiff, right?
Right.
But for the most part, even in a criminal court of law, the burden is on the state. They have all the money. You might say, you know what? I wanted to call that expert witness. I wanted to hire a private investigator. I wanted to get a forensic accountant, pathologist, what have you. And they'll never come back and say, sorry, we couldn't afford that. But you might have to come back and say, listen, I needed a $20,000 retainer for my attorney, and I had to choose between a forensic pathologist and, a private investigator. I chose one over the other. Justice is not equitable. And when you're going into something like this, I have a lawsuit right now pending against the Boston PD, and it could go so many different ways. The jury could find against me. They could find for me and award me some crazy amount of money. But civil rights violations, unless there's like injury and, hospital records, jury is like something tangible. They like to see, okay, this is the dollar amount, but what's your civil rights worth? And a jury at the end of the day might say, you know what? I think that Miami Circus has a great point. I think he's a jerk. He yelled at that cop. I saw it viral. I disagree with what he's doing. And I don't like him, but he had the right to do it. So I'm just going to award him $1, right? So then he wins the case. At that point, the municipality's on the hook to pay all your attorney's fees.
Right.
So, but still, you take that enormous risk. And the reason that this path is so less traveled is because most people are not blessed to be in your position or blessed to be in my position. And that's what the state's counting on, folks. They're counting on the fact that 90% of the populace does not have the means or is too afraid to fight this, meaning they don't have the means, they can't fight it, or they do have the means, but it's just not worth it to them because it was a cop that did it. It's the government that's doing it. So when you have someone out here like Miami Circus that's doing what they're doing, that's following up, following through. I mean, this guy is going in and paying for body cam footage. And this isn't the first experience he's had with the police. And I've watched all the other videos. The other times they came in the property, very kind, very cordial, because they have a healthy respect for Miami Circus. Respect comes from fear. There is good fear. There is bad fear. Good fear is the cops weren't going to violate his rights because they knew that he would have them in a legal chokehold. Bad fear, you're on your own property. I have no consent, no warrant. There's no curtilage protection here. I'm going to reach over the property plane and I'm going to take your Second Amendment right away from you. And this is a problem. And now he's running for office. I'm running for select board, chair of the select board, which essentially where I'm from is a mayor also. Not a big municipality like Miami. But what people will say out there is, oh, you know, you're sacrificing this movement because we don't want politicians. People like Miami Circus and I, we're not politicians. That's why we want the job. We have no skin in the game. We have no ulterior motive. Our ulterior motive is to hold the government accountable at all costs. But because we can't be paid off and because we only want what's right, that makes someone like Miami Circus extremely dangerous to them because they know he is going to follow through right up front. He put his money where his mouth was, and he says, listen, it's a gamble either way, especially with the justice system. You have a better shot going into the casino, and we know what they say about that. The house always wins. So you are where you are now, and you're seeing the amount of money that's in the bank. It's starting to dwindle a little bit, and you're having to count the pennies a little bit. Do you regret taking it to the level that you have?
No, absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. And there's actually a very specific reason why. This country has a deep history of men and women dying for that Constitution. And those who've come before us have made way more sacrifices than we will ever make. This is just a small price to pay. If I didn't have to go through it, trust me, I wouldn't want to go through it. I don't want the position as mayor. I genuinely do not want it. I don't want to be a politician. I just don't trust anybody else to do the right job because they get in there and then they're in the club, you know. And once you're in the club, well, the rules change, you know. You're treated differently. Now you're the elite sector of society. And at this point, I don't want to be part of their club. I understand that club. I've been around that club. I don't see happiness in that club. I'm happy in my world over here. If you look at my hands, these are working man hands, and I'm happy being a working man. I'm always going to be a working man. Doesn't matter how much money I have. This is the where I want to be in life. And speaking of police officers, I mean, some of these police officers down here are really incredible individuals, and they do an incredible job. But we have to keep the bad ones accountable, and we have to separate them from the good ones. So if you look at stories like Uvalde or here in South Florida with Stoneman Douglas, police officers are not legally obligated to help you in any way. You can be dying in front of them. And they're allowed to run away. Their safety, and she said it in the video, her safety comes first, and that's the culture that people have to understand. We're spotlighting it, whether it's good or bad. Spotlight that so that the public understands what they're getting themselves into when they're dealing with police officers. They have zero legal obligation to help you, zero. Yet we pay for a service. So let's get the good ones in there and really separate them from the bad ones. I do have some detectives that have done a public corruption. I had a hearing for code enforcement. They did these code enforcement officers lied under oath. That's a felony. Perjury is a felony in the state of Florida, and quasi-judicial hearings are stated in that statute. and the DA doesn't want to do anything about it. But the Miami-Dade County Police Department Public Corruption Unit, they did. And they said, no, the report's here. And I'm still waiting for it because they know it's damning. And they know that I'm going to bring it up in this federal lawsuit. Public officials, and this is another thing that the public should be aware of. And we can deal with that once we're on the same page. Public officials are lying with impunity. The police are allowed to lie to you. That's already been established. But under oath, the DA doesn't want to prosecute. They protect themselves. They're part of the club. But the public should be aware of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You bring up a great point, and I can see that, excuse me, you kind of rule by the emotion of what freedom is, right? And there's a famous quote from Guy de Maupassant, and he says, for those who have fought for it, life has a flavor the protected shall never know. For those who have died for it, life has a flavor the protected shall never understand. And, you know, I've only fought for it in the sense of our activism and what we're doing now. But I take those words so seriously because what I akin it down to is when, you know, your brother, your cousin, find someone that you know, because everyone knows someone that's given their life for this country, or they know of someone that knows someone. And think of that last moment. We're in that, it's the 40s, they're in that foxhole, or when they're going through a kill tunnel in Fallujah, regardless of where they've been, when they know that they're about to take their last breath, and they still get up and they storm for freedom. Do you think for a second they did it for officer safety? Do you think for a second they did it for people's, you know, bent feelings? They didn't. And some of you out there might disagree with the military. And the beauty of the First Amendment is for you to feel however you want and share it and talk about it and have discourse. That's fine. Some of you even say like, oh, military is a corporation. Let's remove all that. Some 18-year-old kid out of high school with his entire life ahead of him put on a uniform and he fought for what he believed was the battle for the Constitution, right? To protect our country from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And up until 15 years ago, those enemies were foreign. And now they are domestic. They're homegrown. They're wearing uniforms. They're in cells. They're in these super cells. And those super cells are called your local police department. It takes a lot of guts because here's the difference, right? A terrorist can do something and then get killed for it. The police have qualified immunity. They have the ultimate protection. And you can see with the way that you articulate yourself, with the way that you present to these officers and your level of follow through, you can see how much it means to you. And I get what you're saying. You never wanted to run for mayor. You never wanted to be mayor, but what is the alternative, right? Like, you know, if not for freedom, then for what?
Exactly.
What else are we doing it for?
Exactly. And we are on a cusp. You know, the whole January 6th thing, it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not agree with it, that insurrection, it really does show you where the people are feeling, because you have regular people that were willing to storm that Capitol, and that was crazy to watch.
Even cops.
And even cops.
Even
That's right.
Yeah, at some point, we will, like, we're all going to meet in the middle somewhere. It might not be here. It might not be now. It might not be me as an activist or him as a police officer. But some point, people intersect. And that's what I think is important. I think it's important that, like, if we, all right, so regular people in J6 and cop in J6, totally different people, activist J6, cop J6. But then let's look at what all led those people at some point in time. You know, eternity and fate intersected. And that comes down to our basic humanity, people. If we have the ability to get past blue line, past big government, past our own wants and needs, and we can look at what this is supposed to be about. It's not for us. We're fighting today with ourselves for our kids for tomorrow. It's about ourselves and our posterity. Too many people are afraid to take up that fight. Like, right, Miami Circus, no questions asked. He's balls to the wall. He's ready to bug out right now, if need be, for your freedom. Like 300 years ago, they had nothing to lose. So they would not give up their guns. They would not give up their freedom. And them and their entire families would put themselves to the fire because they had nothing to lose. Now we're in 2024 and people look at it the opposite way. We have everything to lose. I have low financing on a mortgage. You know, I got a great deal in a car. I have to take Skylar to soccer practice. Yeah. And when we transform from we have nothing to lose to we have everything to lose, we're part of the problem. We have turned ourselves into sheep. We gave an inch, they took a mile, we asked no questions. And now Miami, has a guy named Miami Circus out there with the most petrifying thing in the world, a camera. And they're petrified. They are afraid of you. You've made the news. You know, you're the talk of the town as far as the cops go. And, you know, but it's good to see that not all of them are falling in the line that first cop did. Have you seen him since?
No, I haven't seen him since. No, in all fairness to the police officers down here in Miami-Dade County, some good people. I mean, these are constitutionalists. And speaking of, we're going to have to meet in the middle. That's where we meet in the middle. We've got to come back and raise our Constitution to the level of value that our forefathers, those who've come before us, your father, my father, those who have come generations before us, the Constitution of the United States was everything. And to me, it is. To you, it is. And that's where I think everybody meets in the middle. When I, as a politician now, when I speak to the different sides, because I kept saying I'm a lifelong Democrat. That's not true anymore. It's not fair to say that anymore. I wanted to bring the Democrats back from they're dabbling with socialism, and they're playing too much. They're trying to turn this into Europe. That's where they're headed. And I wanted to stay in that party and go ahead and bring them back. But you know what? As of right now, they have to lose good people. And it's not that I agree with the Republicans all out, but I tend to be more conservative when I, you know, in my ideology. But I tell everybody I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal. And so the Libertarian Party now, and I was a Libertarian, I was a registered Libertarian for a while. So the Libertarian Party has shown a lot of interest in me, and that's the direction I'm going. So now I am a registered Libertarian. And even though this is a
closest thing to a constitutionalist on paper that you'll get, I mean, certainly if we're playing by the rule book, and this is the problem, right? Is that what was a Democrat 30 plus years ago is a Republican now. Yeah. What a Republican now is a Libertarian then. Like the political landscape is always changing. But if you have a basic principle, and you know, like for those who are religious, like for example, Catholics believe the Bible is infallible. Americans believe the Constitution is infallible. I don't know where the cops, you know, saw the word inalienable and they transformed it to negotiable. But that's the thing, right? Yep. We gave ourselves, the founding fathers, they could never have foreseen cell phone cameras and smart apps and all the cool gadgets that we had. But they did understand basic humanity. Yep. They understood that we could be the same tyranny they were fighting back then. And they put in certain safeguards. They gave ourselves a standing militia. They gave that militia to each state. So that way each state could protect itself from encroaching states, like when Texas seceded. And now that local militia, that is now a federalized National Guard. We put ourselves in a position where if any point we became too tyrannical, we could take back our country. That's right. Realistically, we do not have the capability of doing that. And it's not because we're not armed or educated. It's because, you know, we're underhearted. We don't have it here, right? We have it here and we don't have it here. And the Miami circuses of the world can only lead us to water. But we're going to have to be enough of a real American and not a snowflake to say, I'm at water. Miami Circus led me there. I'm going to drink, and I'm not going to ask the government if it's okay first.
That's right. And you know, I'm okay with government doing certain things in public spaces, with the exception of you're not going to keep us from filming. The Constitution. I'm just talking about if they want to put cameras up in public spaces, that's fine. But when it comes to private property, there's nothing more sacred, in my opinion, in America. The government must be handcuffed at all times. And to me, that's the whole point of the Bill of Rights, is to remind the government that you want to fight the citizens in court, for instance. You will be handcuffed. You will be hogtied. You're going to have a harder fight. But it's flipped backwards in today's world, because just like you said, the plaintiff, even against the government, and normally in normal circumstances, if it's private entities, I don't disagree with the civil rules of procedure and that stuff. But when it comes to the government government must be hogtied. That's the whole point of the Constitution. But now, because of qualified immunity or absolute immunity and supreme immunity and all these immunities that the government enjoys, now we're the ones who have to fight with one hand tied behind our backs, and we have to share, prove, we have the burden of proof on that that we have to show, and so the government just keeps getting bigger and keeps doing more of whatever they want because they have their immunities. It's one of the biggest travesties is qualified immunity. I think that's going to change in the future if we continue this fight. But we must continue this fight, and we do have to run for office. Those who have this like-minded appreciation, or not just appreciation, but this like-minded need that the Constitution must regain its value in this country, must run for office. And be yourself. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people are going to like you, some are not. I'm in the world where some people like me, some people don't. I get it. And I tell people, if you don't like me, I understand if you don't vote for me. But if you want to see more freedoms on your private property, I'm your guy. Because that's what I'm going to fight for. And my campaign promise is I'm going to put a live camera in the mayor's office, because it's not my office, it's the people's office, and they should know what their employees doing. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to investigate the investigators, because enough is enough. And I'm going to make this First Amendment community proud in doing that. And I hope I do become a big major celebrity out of it, much like you have become. And I'm very proud of what you have done. And that's why I reached out to you and I said, hey, man, if you give me the honor to speak with me, because your audience is a beautiful audience, they should know what's going on in different parts of the country, and this is what's going on down here.
I'm going to take this moment because I can't help myself, and I'm going to lessen my value of education here for a second. But that's the best way to rope up a pig, is hog tie him. You know what I mean? Man. But yeah, you bring up a great point, and we got to, and this is what I'm telling people. They're saying like, oh, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm like, it's been broken, right? Like, so what is then we have to delve into what your definition of broken is, right? Like, if we didn't kill an unarmed person today, we only violated their Fourth Amendment right, we're golden, right? Because the amount of money we're going to pay out in a lawsuit is far less. People are just not willing to face the fact that they need to be part of the solution. I told people, listen, last year in this municipality, only 1% of the population came out to vote on who would change their lives, who would hold power, right? Even if I lose, I'm a magnetic personality. I'm a big personality. I have a large channel. I live in a small area. If I get 10% people out to vote and I lose, I don't give a shit. I drew people out of their homes. That's what this is about, to get people involved. And I don't want to be a politician. I have no skin in the game. I have no ulterior motive. I'm going to do it, number one, because I can, and number two, because they shouldn't. And that's the same thing that you're doing. You put in between a rock and a hard place. If not me, then who? And if the who is them, then it must be me. And that's exactly what we're doing. Folks, if you haven't subscribed to Miami Circus, links in the description of this video, along with some of his original videos, including the one that we did today. And the reason I wanted to put him in front of you, right, is because we could watch the video and I could say I talked to him or record the phone call. You at home, you believe that you don't have the ability to make a difference, right? I was homeless. I was living on the streets. I was addicted to drugs. I had nothing but this, right? I had this in front of me, and that changed my life. People identified. If you're living in Miami-Dade, and you think that you don't have the ability to stand up and create a change, if you don't think you don't have the value to create that change and offer a shot, a real shot for other people to stand on their own 2 feet and prosper, look at this. Shining example. That's what it's about. He has a face, he has a name, he has a voice, and he has a message. And Miami-Dade is petrified of every single one of them. And that's why I wanted to have him up here. He is a beautiful, shining example of what you can do should you put your mind to it and then execute, right? Prepare, execute. What good is the preparation if you're not prepared to execute? Freedom is non-negotiable. It's inalienable. These are not privileges, they are rights. And your rights can't be converted into a privilege or into a crime. And the moment the government would submit that tyranny on people, it is those people's right to stand up against their oppressor. That is not the United States of America. That is not 1944 Germany. That is not the Egyptian Empire. We're going back to before we could even record this information. People were designed to stand up and fight when something's wrong and to resist oppression, right? When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. When the government fear the people, there is liberty, right? There's nothing equity. Lady Liberty is not blind. She's handcuffed, right? It's the government that should be, not the liberty and the will of the people, for the people, and by the people. And in Miami, those people look just like Miami Circus. And if you're not going to his page right now, then, I mean, listen, you don't like freedom, that's okay. You know, you can crawl into a hole, you can not vote, you can talk shit about guns, and you can just do whatever you want, go enjoy yourself. Don't come out of the hole. But if you're not one of those people hiding in their hole, and you know what those people in the hole do? I tell them, don't talk about it, be about it. Those people probably in Miami Circus look through his comment section telling him what he should have done different, and how he should have socked the cop in the mouth, and how he should do this and how he should do that. And all 9 of the negative comments that I went through, when I went to their channel, I didn't see any videos at all. Not like videos of them doing it better or worse, but no videos at all. Till you get up and create the change that you seek like he did, then, just support. Be a part of a community. Miami Circus, when is your next video coming out?
Well, I've been holding off because of the amount of lawsuits that I am in. I'm waiting for, I had a hearing a couple weeks ago, and I was railroaded naturally. It's code enforcement. That's how, it's kind of how all this started. It's code enforcement, and they're the ones who are violating the Constitution at a very rapid pace. And that's happening across the country. And I know we focus a lot on law enforcement, and that video had to do with law enforcement. I keep up with it because code enforcement, although they're not necessarily going to shoot you the way the law enforcement will, and we have those issues down here. And my attorney does specifically deal with police brutality, and then police shootings. He's a civil rights litigator for that, and this is relatively new for him, but he sees the parallels. But anyway, I have a hearing that was done. It should have been overturned, but it wasn't. And I knew it wasn't going to be, because these hearing officers are in line. They're paid by the government. They're not real judges. And, they fall in line. And this guy's been a hearing officer for 30 years. You don't keep that position unless you always,
you don't stay in the seat very long if you're doing the right thing for the people. Certainly not. And you're right. Like, the police are not the largest arm of the government. And I tell people this all the time. 2 years ago, people thought I was nuts because I stopped going to police stations. I started going to town halls, and people were like, what are you doing? You're harassing or yelling at some old man or old lady, the cops out there. There's judicial, legislative, and executive branches of government, right? There's a reason that executive is the executor, right? This is your top tier of government. This is where the laws are being passed, right? So like where we live, they can pass ordinances and certain laws. The police's job is to enforce those laws. Now, I can go to the tail of the snake and shake the rattle and be like, why are you doing that? I want to go to the head, right? So I started going to town halls because I wanted to hold my government accountable. I wanted to take it to the mayor. I wanted to take it to the town manager, the town administrator. I went to the Capitol, the state representatives. And that's what I started doing. I started taking the fight to them. People thought I was crazy. A lot of people are doing that now. And you're absolutely right. The police are, they're the bouncer, right? But when you sue, you don't sue the bouncer. You're suing the club, right? That's where everything's happening. Now, it doesn't make them any better for punching you in the face when you didn't do anything wrong, but you're pissed at the guy that's hiring him. You're pissed at the guy inside making all the rules. Now, imagine if you at home were sitting in the seat where you could make fair rules, and those rules were intended not to better the system, but to weaken the system, because people are afraid, like, oh, I don't want the system to be, to be weak. You're conditioned to think that. It's a yin and a yang. If the system is weak, the people are strong. If the people are strong, the system is weak. The people are weak, the system is strong. Now, it's a prison mentality, right? There's usually only 3 guards to every 100 inmates. Those inmates could take that facility back, but they don't, because they keep the balance of power on an often unquestionable scale. But you get someone like Miami Circus into the mayor's seat, And all of a sudden, the first thing, there's going to be two things that happen. One thing we're not going to see, the other we are going to see. All the cops are going to have to go home and change their depends. They're going to shit their pants. We won't see that. What we will see is all of them walking up to Miami Circus on his inauguration, thanking him and willing him support. And they're going to be doing it through fake smiles for the most part, because it goes around, it comes back around. And this is the guy that's going to make it come back around. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to see it. I was watching the video, and I'm usually not vocal, Miami, but I'm watching your video, and I did the, oh, what? No, what? And then I rewinded it, and then I'm like, no, yo, babe, you got to watch this. And then she's like, wait, what's that? And then I started sending it to my friends, and I'm like, have you heard of this guy? And they were like, no. I was like, he just sent me an email. Like, this is fucking awesome. And then I started looking into it, and I realized that you weren't an auditor, right? Like, I mean, you are auditing now, but you were just a citizen that had enough. And to me, an origin story that anyone can go out and yell at government and try and affect change. But to see the birth of someone, the reason why they're doing it, and to see that person evolve the way that you have, it's an honor to see. And I got to tell you, I'm going to fanboy. I hit the like button, folks. I also set the notification bell to always. And you should too, because I'm on pins and needles waiting for the next one.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Josh.
My pleasure. So let's do this. He's putting out a lot of money, right? He's spending a lot of money. So do you have PayPal, Cash App?
Yeah, I do.
All right, so perfect. You have my cell phone number. As soon as this ends, I'm going to want you, we're still live, guys. You can see this. I want you to text me that stuff. So right now, you can go into the description of this video. You're going to see his Cash App and his PayPal links, because we can say in the comment section that we want to help him. But he's fighting an uphill battle. He's footing the bill himself. That is what this is about, taking part of the burden, right? Let's take the burden. If everyone watching this video throws in a buck, he's not made whole, but he sure has the ability to keep pursuing that fight. So make sure you send him anything that you have extra. I know times are tough. $1. It's fine. I'll give it back to you on the next video, the members only video. I'll make it available to the public. You know, Miami Circus, I appreciate you. And you know, keep up the great work, brother.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Guys, it's my pleasure. That's for certain. Check out Miami Circus. Like I said, his links are in the description of this one. You guys have a duty out there. It's a responsibility, and you're taking a responsibility and you're looking at it as a suggestion, and you want to know why we're in the crisis state that we're in, because they took a little bit of freedom, you close your eyes. They took a little bit more freedom, you close your ears. Then they took all the freedom and you close your mouth. So listen, closed mouths don't get fed. Be part of the solution, and that's the reason I stopped you today. All right, my man.